Hello everybody, welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, bringing a brand new review, and today I'm going to be reviewing the brand new biographical drama film, The Apprentice, which is now out in cinemas, directed by Ali Abassi, starring Sebastian Stan as Donald Trump, in a biopic that goes through the earlier years and his rise to be the Donald Trump that we all know and today. And it's very weird timing with this. I don't know how divisive this is going to be. I don't know if there's going to be some like batshit insane red caps watching this fuming that I'm going to be talking about this film. I don't know if there's other people that are going to be expecting me to go all in on this film. But it's a really tricky one, especially with the election looming in the next few weeks, with all the modern politics happening, not just in America, but outside of America. And I'm doing my best to cover this as a film, as it did premiere earlier this week at the London Film Festival. We've not been covering it this year, but we've got a review coming out tomorrow for The Wild Robot as well. So most of the LFF films are actually going to be out in the next 4 or 5 weeks here in the United Kingdom. So we're going to get a lot of those reviews out, and the next thing we know is Oscar season. And will this film be up at Oscar season? That's something I might talk about a little bit later on. But as always, I do want to hear from you at home, so please comment your thoughts on this film, not the election, down below. I'm really curious to know what people think of this. I haven't really read much about this respectively review-wise, audience-wise. I don't know how people took to it. It's going to obviously be completely different regardless of what country you're from. Everyone's going to have a different take on this. So I'm actually very curious to know what people do think. They liked it, they didn't like it. And if you want to find out about other videos, go get us on our social medias. We do post clips as well. Get them on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd to linktree.com/cinemasavvy. But if I give my thoughts going on in this film, I am very surprised this film actually made it to release. I just, for some reason, thought this film would never see the light of day. I know it premiered strong at Cannes earlier this year. I know that the Americans struggled to find distributors afterwards. And I think it came out last week in America, which of course is a month before the election. And I think it's like an independent or a smaller production company that distributes it. So it hasn't had the marketing blitz that maybe you think this film would have had. Over here in the UK, we've had it through Studio Canal, a fairly big name here. I've done a lot more marketing over here, so I'm again curious to see what the numbers do. But with the subject figure, what it's going to be talking about, even if people don't know what this is about specifically, it's obviously going to be very different to people heading into this. So I was sort of on guard, not really knowing what to expect. I hadn't seen trailers, but the film had Sebastian Stan playing Donald Trump, and I think he is a very good actor. I actually think I don't want to say he's underrated, and I don't even want to say he's stuck in the Marvel bubble, which is always unfair, but I think he's a great character actor that ends up being the supporting role more so than the lead. So it's great that we get to see him in a film as the lead. And I actually think, I'll talk about performances shortly, but he's very good in this film. So he was a talking point for me. I wasn't familiar with Ali Abassi's film work. I know he directed a couple of episodes of The Last of Us. That's more than enough to get me in to watch this, knowing, okay, he's done this before. He's obviously worked with some great names on that in one of the best series of the last few years. And then you have Jeremy Strong, who I absolutely love, who I think is one of the best working actors today. Obviously, talking about Succession as well, but Trial of Chicago 7 he was also great in. He's done a lot of theatre work. And I'll be honest, I didn't know anything about Trump's lawyer, who is a centric theme of this. So going into this knowing nothing, like every biopic inspired by real events, etc., etc., I saw Trump's rant online, I think it was last week or the week before. I saw Sebastian Stan do a great interview earlier this week on it. I've seen a lot of, I almost said Kendall Roy, I've seen a lot of Jeremy Strong talk about it too. So again, I know what you're going to get with a film like this, and my overall instincts before I start breaking it down is I actually thought this is a very good film, and I did like this film. Keyword is like the film, not the people, because I love not necessarily a political drama, but this is, I don't want to call it an origin story either, it's a rise to power type film. Let's take this person from their early days, let's see who took them under their wing and how they projected them, put them on this path to being this person at the end of it. And I just don't want to call it an origin for Donald Trump because that's outrageous. But it is something I was very curious about because over here, I've never watched The American Apprentice. I've never I've been to the outside Chicago Trump Tower and sent a message there, but I've never been in the hotels. I've never been part of that thing. And as I said, American politics, it's hard to escape it. Pretty much everything I've known and heard is obviously the last decade of my life. So I don't know particularly too much about him before then. So there is somewhat of an interest. You hear stories online, you read reports, legal stuff, interviews he's done, interviews other people have done. Obviously, an outrageous figure, and it's quite surprising that it's took this long for a film to be made. Granted, I understand why it's probably took a bit longer with the last 10 years too, but it was really interesting. But what really sold me on this was the premise of his lawyer, Cohn, essentially not like making Trump who he is and goes on to be, but it's one of them snidey undertones. Look at this dodgy lawyer that can play the game. Look at this person he's going to be working with. What's he going to teach him, and how is he basically going to feed his ego, build off this, and basically become this humongous caricature, comical, real life mega billionaire type that has his name plastered on everything. And the film, I think, does a very good job at explaining that. I think it's directed in a really unique way where whether it's the filters over the top or if it's shot in film, I don't know, but there's a certain way this has been shot, and when Trump is sort of at his most egotistical, everything feels different with the aspect ratio of how the film's been shot. The presentation of him, you get more close-ups, you get more smugness, you get the character, I don't know what the official term is, but you know the Dark Knight Rises, when they make Bane look taller than what he is, because Tom Hardy's not the tallest, they'd frame everything to make him look huge and impending. It does that as the film gets on. So I appreciate the storytelling within the frame alongside what I think is a pretty great script, if I'm honest. I really liked the script. I think Jeremy Strong is incredible in this film. I don't like doing the Oscars talk really early because it's October, but I really want to see him nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I thought he was great in this. We get to see him at his cockiest, his most arrogant, and we get to see him at his most vulnerable. And I actually think the most interesting stuff of the film isn't actually Trump, but to see about Cohn and his not necessarily rise downwards, but it's very much he's at the top of the tree. You could argue the first third of the film is Donald Trump learning from his mentor, and then it's about how their relationship alters, changes, how it ends towards the end, and how the characters go their separate ways. And I quite like that with the film, but it's always tricky with this because it is based off real events. It is supposedly real, and like everything, it has the inspired by messages. I haven't spoke about Maria Bakalova, who has played his wife in it, Ivana. I think she's very good in this film too. She's not in it as much as I thought she might be, but when she is on screen, she has a certain presence, and I think she's got great chemistry with Sebastian Stan, who once again is amazing in this. I mentioned about what I think of as an actor earlier on. I really do like him. The first couple of scenes, it was very weird in my head because you look at Donald Trump as like I want to say like a wrestler, but you know, he's already in their Hall of Fame. He's done the wrestling gig before. It's like someone playing someone, right? And a couple of scenes, it's really weird. I didn't think he looked like Sebastian Stan, but there was just a part of me that was like, I'm not sure about this. But as the film goes on, I really feel that he becomes one of the role. I think he's great. He's got the mannerisms, he's got the voice, and you start to see how the ego feeds, how he goes on to think the way he does and becomes the way he does. So I've got to give massive shout out to that performance, because if that performance fails, the film fails. You can't have a few good supporting actors carrying a dreadful lead, and I think it's a really ballsy choice to play Trump. And I was sitting there in the theatre for a moment thinking, who could have actually played Donald Trump? Because you've got him in the prosthetics, and it looks great. It's not a Gary Oldman in The Darkest Hour where it's too outrageous. It's not anything where he doesn't look at all like him. It's got this really weird middle ground that seems to work. And I did sit there for a brief moment thinking, Sebastian Stan looks like he's playing Philip Seymour Hoffman playing Donald Trump, which is a massive credit to Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's gone way too early, one of the best working actors of his time. And I genuinely believe he's one of the actual only actors who probably could have actually played Trump. And that's a really weird thing to segue into. But I just kept thinking of Philip Seymour Hoffman whilst I was watching this film. And I don't really know why. I don't know if it's because he wears a tux in Mission Impossible 3, and it's a bit like that with the wedding scene. But it was in my head a lot. So yeah, it's a film that's built on the foundations of its performances, of the story. As I said, the Trump rise to fame thing, I'm going to take it all with a pinch of salt, in the respect that I don't particularly care for the accuracy of that. What I care about is the storytelling of the film. I will do some research and look online at maybe what is real and what isn't real. I know they used interviews from the legal stuff with the divorce of Ivana to put certain scenes in place which are being brought up. And like everything in modern politics, everyone's going to shout and scream whether they've got evidence or not got evidence. It's going to be one of those divisive films with the subject nature. So I do understand that. But for me, it was a hit for me. I think it's very, very good. Some things don't work for me. I don't know whether that's limitation with budget or if it's speeding up events. what it does do is it shows us how this person became the person we know. And like many sort of billionaires of that time, we can look at family relationships, their treatment of other people. We can look at today and what we see in the media, what we read in the media. Factual information too is a really important one. And this film does like to go into how he developed that side to him, where basically even when you lose, never admit you lose. There's 3 rules to it also. I did appreciate that, and I think this works as a great drama. But past that point, will I see it again? Probably not. Do I recommend other people to watch this film? I think I would. I think if you can actually handle modern politics being discussed differently, if you can look at a film without going in for it because maybe, oh, you like this person in real life, here's a film doing events their way, or etc, etc. I think it's worth a go. If you've got the actual emotional maturity to watch a film like this, then please do it. If you don't, just don't bother, because you've already formed your opinion whether you like him or hate him. But for me, certainly as a Brit overseas who doesn't care for him, I thought this film was good. I thought this film was interesting, and I'm curious to know what other people thought of this too. So that's going to do it for this review today. I hope you've liked it. I hope it hasn't been too weird. And for everybody watching at home, thank you so much. There's a lot more videos on the way. I mentioned The Wild Robot. We've got Mount Rushmore's coming every Tuesday as well. They've had a lot of hype on them. So once again, thank you to everyone that's been watching and supporting us, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.